We're going to talk about outreach for the liberty movement. How do we get other people, why do we have, such relative few people here? And how can we fill the big hall to overflowing? How can we get more people to appreciate our liberties, and grow our movement? So we'll just start with Anita and then just, talk for a few minutes on your thoughts and then pass the mic.
Thank you. And as I said earlier, I'm Anita Moncrief. I formerly worked with ACORN. Now I'm the national spokesperson for American Majority, and I'm also their trainer. And that's one of the things that we've been actually working on right now, because it seems like, and I said this to some people individually, it's like herding cats to get the right to work together. It seems that everyone wants to go off and create their own organizations and reinvent the wheel, and sometimes it's egos or whatever, but I am seeing that people are starting to realize that if we want to win, we have to all work together, and that's the first step. And I think also conservatives need to start listening more. You cannot you cannot expect to work and to get the libertarians to vote with you if you're not willing to listen to their ideas. And that's something that I've seen so many times, not only at CPAC, but in other conventions where we're all together. It seems that the conservatives try to dominate and expect you guys to follow, and that's not going to work. So what we're trying to do right now is not only to reach out to minority and other communities that will provide different type of votes and voices for us, but also to get all of us to work together and take all the initiatives, whether they be local, state-based, or whatever, and use those as vehicles for change. We've got all the infrastructures there. We're just not utilizing them because sometimes you guys just need a little bit of national support, or a certain Tea Party group just needs training. But if we're all working together and using our resources, we're going to take back this country, because that's what the left does. I tell people all the time, the Planned Parenthood people don't really get along with the gay rights people, but they work together because they understand that there's a common goal at the end.
Thank you. My name is Michael Murphy. I'm the chairman of the Wisconsin chapter of the Republican Liberty Caucus, and basically just a little insight on what the RLC is that we are a 527 political action committee made up and comprised of libertarians and constitutionalists that belong to the Republican Party and try to foster public policy change through advocating libertarian ideas and issues, as well as helping foster libertarian-style candidates that come up through the Republican Party. As I was just talking with Mr. Evers here right before I'm sorry? I'm sorry. Prior to speaking, is that we do work together. We have to work together, even though we do run different routes to get the liberty standard in the mainstream. We do try to work with the Libertarian Party in as much as the philosophies and the issues that we champion, but we necessarily we take a different route in getting certain of those peoples and those ideas elected in a different fashion. But at no time are we in opposition or promote opposition whatsoever. Liberty needs to be championed by all, and that's what we're here to do here today.
Thank you. My name is Paul Ehlers. I'm the state secretary of the Libertarian Party of Wisconsin, and prior to that, I've been on the executive committee, and I am a school teacher and a member of WIAC. And
you know
yeah, I do. I'm not a lifelong teacher. I own my own business. I come from a family business background, and I had a music store, and I got on the gravy train about 11 years ago. And there is no job where I live as good as a government job.
That's just wrong.
You know, there's something wrong with the system where the servants get more money, better health care, and better retirement systems than the people who pay their salary. Okay? But that's neither here nor there. You know, how do we promote liberty? You know, I was shocked that they'd ask a libertarian, because this is about the size of our state convention. We're not, you know, we don't get anybody elected. respected. You know, so how do you do it? And we're in a really tough spot, all of us. We are trying to get our rights back from a government that never gave them to us in the first place. These inalienable rights, they didn't come from the government. And we're trying to get them back from a government that has no power. They just took them. So, you know, I don't have any answers, but I do have some thoughts. And so I'll share those with you, and then I guess we're going to do a question and answer. But the first thing, I think there's no greater threat to our liberty than our foreign wars. I hope that's really clear. That's the greatest threat to our liberty. The Patriot Act that was passed was just one in a long line of acts. And, you know, my economic liberty is at stake because of the war. Okay, so that's number one. You know, number two is we like to complain. You know, I don't write a thank you letter to my senator if he stumbles upon a good law and does something right for once. But if he does something wrong, I chew his butt, sort of like what the town chairman of Pine River was doing. But I think what we have to do is like raising children. You have to catch them being good. And when they do something that promotes liberty, we got to say thank you. We have to encourage that behavior. Because when you attack people, they get defensive. When they get defensive, they don't listen. They shut down. They get entrenched in their positions. I mean, I teach for a living today. And, you know, that's how you change people's minds, is not by threatening them and not by forcing them and backing them into a corner. It's through reward. Nicolay College is the lowest higher education place in the state. It's a technical college with a junior college mission. So I have not A and B students. They go to Point, they go to Madison, they go to Eau Claire. I get our kids that they weren't very good at school. They didn't like school. But they realize they got to get an education, so they say, well, I'll stick my foot in at Nicolay. And so I have to, you know, kind of build up their confidence that they can do be a student. So I think that's what we have to do with our elected leaders. You know, there's small government liberals. There really are. I was one. And there's small government conservatives. I'm one of them too, and that's really what makes me a libertarian. So the labels have to go. I think, you know, when we write letters to the editor, the people in here we are really interested in the issues. You know, we care about the issues and we think about the issues. But I don't think the media cares about the issues. They care about the royal wedding, what Charlie Sheen is doing, what kind of clothes Paris Hilton is wearing. So instead of writing issue-oriented things, maybe we have to get them to come and see us do things. We have to do things. And that's, you know, we have to run for office. And I'm guilty of that. I don't want to run for office. My greatest fear would be like you. I might get elected. Okay? But we got to do it. You know, we got to do it. We've got some real problems with defining our terms. Liberty is considered being selfish. Now, I'm an Ayn Randian. I understand the virtues of selfishness, but selfishness becomes allied with greed. And Alan Greenspan used to think greed was good, but this last bubble even has him scratching his head about, holy shit. Okay? So we have to overcome this impression that libertarians and people that love liberty aren't just selfish, and we want to screw poor people or the handicapped and let them crawl off in the corner and die. Okay? We got to fight that image. You know, it has to be in our backyard. P.J. O'Rourke wrote a wonderful book called Eat the Rich and All the Trouble in the World and all these great books. And the point he makes is that everyone wants to save the world, but no one wants to help grandma do the dishes. Okay? And so, Thanksgiving, we all come and we eat. And what do the men do? They go watch football, and they drink beer, and they discuss these important problems. We discuss these important problems about Somalia and communism. And there's real people doing real work called our wives, grandmothers, daughters that could really use our help. Okay? And that's not all politics is local stuff. So we have to change the impression of what the liberty movement is. And if you're a member of the Lions Club and you guys do something out in the community, wear your Ron Paul t-shirt. Okay? Don't hide. Okay? Let them catch us being good. We're the only examples of liberty people are going to see. And so we have to watch our rhetoric. We have to watch our rhetoric. We've got to not look like we're wackos. Okay? Liberty should be mainstream. We are the center. We are. We've got more in common with probably all the groups out there. Because everybody wants to be able to live their life the way they think they should. So, we just got to be careful, We live in an age that tells us everybody's opinion is equal. And it's not true. There are people that study things, and they're intelligent. Oh, I'm sorry. I can hold it closer. But anyway, they're not everybody's opinion is equal. And we do have experts, and we have to somehow understand that. So I guess those are some of the ideas that I have about growing the party. Thanks.
I think Paul brought up quite a variety of issues or points related to this issue. One thing that I liked, and I'd like to embellish upon, is when the legislators do good, you have to support them. One thing I think that is easy to forget is that most people are legislators. Why? Because they're somewhat social animals. They like helping people. And is this on? Oh yeah, it's on. And they don't like being all alone. So yes, put pressure on them to behave properly, but don't let them be out there. Just an example of what I'm talking about, there was a fellow who was on the Boston City Council with me, and we were talking. This is actually before I got elected to the council, and he said, if I have a good idea and I don't think anybody's going to go along with it, I won't even bring it up. And I'm thinking, wow, that's just totally opposite of Ken Van Doren, but maybe I throw too many ideas out there. But when encourage your politicians to take these strong and brave stands, and right now, especially as polarized as things are, we have, like I said earlier, we have to pass that legislation on voting reform, or we will continue to have elections stolen from us. And when they do, just like Paul said, when they do behave properly, give them an attaboy, support them. Don't let them out there all by themselves, or they're going to back off. They don't want to be the only one on an issue. One thing I'd like to ask the panel, is there one issue that would unify the left and the right? I mean, other than just generally freedom itself, is there a particular issue that you can think of that would help broaden our support here? And you want a minute to think about this, or does anybody have any? I mean, you can take a pass if you want. I see these quizzical looks on people's heads. RIK. I guess I'm talking, mostly D versus R. And there's no perfect definition, because you decide that something means something, and a few years later it means something else. I still consider myself a liberal as the term was originally intended. Strong on individual rights, and government, leave me the heck alone. That's a liberal. That's not a modern liberal. Let me throw out an idea. You know, we mentioned earlier, you know, the left likes to talk about the concentration of wealth. And I'm thinking the Federal Reserve might be that issue because, you know, it helps enhance the people, the wealth of people who really didn't earn anything. They just pulled money out of thin air. What do you think of that? I'll let you embellish on that thought. Do you think that that is an issue that we could sell to the public and get more support on?
I can tell you that. As far as the Federal Reserve is concerned, what I see a problem in both of those parties, both the Democrat and the Republican mainstream, is that the Federal Reserve is utilized as control. Okay? Until we can liberate ourselves from that control, they're going to use it to their advantage. And we must show the everyday individual citizen, the 30-second activist that I call, that is only watching the half-hour news show, getting upset for about 30 seconds, and then moving on with their daily life. We have to show those individuals how evil the Federal Reserve is to this republic. And until we can do that, until we can build a mainstream on both sides, either if they consider them Democrat, so be it, or Republican, or independent, until we can get a collective effort going up against the power brokers, the ruling class in both parties, only then we can disrupt what it is.
Sure, I can comment. Yeah, I definitely think the Fed has to go. Never really understood why banks couldn't loan money to themselves in a free market system, why they needed a Fed in the first place, frankly. And but I don't know that that's that big an issue to people. They don't understand it. They don't understand economics. They don't understand banking. So I good if we can audit it. And what are we going to do when we find out it doesn't have any money? We just keep pretending, right? I mean, isn't that what the world is doing? Aren't we just pretending that this is worth something and that it'll work, and we're all kind of just hoping that it's real, and so yeah, it's an issue, but I think you got to grab people where they live, and boy, if we can somehow tie it to jobs, huh? Don't we all need jobs?
I think the banking issue, you said a very key word there, that no one understands banking. That should be the issue.
Fractional reserve.
We don't understand banking. Banking should be that everybody understands what it is.
Public school.
Let's use the right term, Government Indoctrination Center.
That's why people don't understand banking.
Did you want to respond, Paul?
Well, I think the purpose of banks, banks don't loan poor people money. That's what pawn shops are for. Okay? Go borrow $100 from your bank. Okay? You can't borrow $100 from a bank because it costs them too much to process the loan. They're not going to loan you $100. They're only going to loan people money that can pay it back. So, what's the purpose of the bank? The banks were created to keep the wealth where it was.
Just to touch on your point real quick, banking is easy. It's government that makes it not easy. Okay? There's a great book, in fact, Liberty on the Rocks table has it on her table, Economics in One Lesson. The book is what, 180 some pages maybe, 200? It's not that hard. Regulators, government bureaucrats, people that are trying to play the three-card Monte system are trying to make it hard to where you can't understand it. It's not that hard. 10-to-1 reserve ratio, okay? I got $1, I'm loaning out 9 others, but I don't have it. How hard is that? It's a Ponzi scheme. So educate yourself, educate your neighbors. It doesn't take that long. You could probably watch a 2-hour video, a Hayek video, and understand the core concept of it all. And then recognize in those 30-minute politician sound bites how they're lying, why they're lying, and where the ball is under which cup.
Anita, I'd like to direct the question to you. When you were at CPAC, what did you notice there? I mean, you certainly, they like to describe the Republican Party or the conservative movement as a three-legged stool, and they always refer to the economic conservatives, the social conservatives, and the so-called national security conservatives. I kind of dispute that characterization, but nevertheless, did you see these people talking past each other? What did you observe?
So what went on at CPAC? What's your impression of what went on there? And is that an apt analogy that it's a three-legged stool with the social conservatives, the national security conservatives, and the economic conservatives?
Thank you. And first, I just wanted to, before I answer that, I wanted to go back to what you were saying. You were exactly right. When I think of the Fed being an issue that will unite people, it's not. You have to realize that you're not, in some cases, dealing with rational people, especially on the Democrat side. They use how they pass health care. They use compelling stories, and they put people out there that pulled at people's heartstrings and made them want to make a difference. If we're going to really unite folks, we have to realize that we can't go with the same approach that would work with you guys, because it's preaching to the choir. You're going outside of that, and you have to figure out a way to get to them, and that's what you have to do. You have to get those emotions going, whether it be anger or, you know, sorrow or whatever. It has to be something that creates a buy-in. So I really loved your answer. I just had to say that. But CPAC, this was one of the most contentious CPACs ever. I think a lot of you were aware of that. The social conservatives were fighting with the fiscal conservatives over the inclusion of Go Proud and the Muslim Brotherhood. There was a distinct divide throughout the whole weekend. The social conservatives were upset about the G Proud people, so they would Go Proud people, so they were boycotting. The people that weren't boycotting were there to make their presence known, but they were in their little cliques and groups. And then everyone was upset, and I hate to say this, everyone was upset with the Ron Paul people. Everyone. And that is something that So over the whole Muslim Brotherhood, over Go Proud, more people were upset with what went on at CPAC. And that's something that you guys, I don't know how we can do this, but every year, and I've been to 3 CPACs since 2009, 2010, and then this one. Every year, the Ron Paul kids come into there, and I was telling someone this personally. They come in and they take over the conference. And I get the emails, I get the Campaign for Liberty emails, and I get all of them. And they were basically telling the kids, if you have a pulse, we will give you a free ticket to come to CPAC and vote in the straw poll. So there's a resentment there because they feel like Ron Paul is winning the straw poll, but only because they're packing it with the kids. So they don't talk to any of those people. Any of the Ron Paul people, they're automatically excluded. They're separate. And they're, you know, it's like their presence there is so big you can't ignore them, but somehow the conservatives do. And this is what I saw this year. It was just a distinct divide between the different groups, and there's a resentment there. And they even, after CPAC, had their own straw poll on hot air because they felt like that was the fair way to do it. So there's no one's really listening to each other. It's just they all come together as, like, you know, it's like homecoming, but it's homecoming for 4 different high schools. You were at CPAC.
I went for the first time this year, and I was like separated from this group. I was by myself, big, you know, open room. It was everybody was trying to pad down to see Ron Paul speak live, but there's maybe 4 or 5 people ahead of him. So I get there and I'm sitting next to these 2, just, you know, 2 white women, maybe like, you know, they like tea party. We're there, so they're from a tea party, like from over yonder. Across the aisle was a group of like young Republican kids, Nana being from Wisconsin. So when Sean Duffy came out to introduce Tim Bellanti, you know, he's Wisconsin, so we were all like, yeah, Wisconsin, and the guys across the aisle were like, yeah, Wisconsin, And then the ladies next to me, they were, you know, there's some Ron Paul, other Campaign for Liberty folks behind me. And then something that happened where, I think it was before Ron Paul came out, you know, we're all like, you know, cheering and going wild. And those kids that had that same solidarity with being Wisconsinites, like, yeah, we're here at CPAC. Boo! And the ladies next to me, those Ron Paul people, because something had come up about maybe, the war, or somebody made some comment at some point. So she's really right about those divisions, and a lot of Campaign for Liberty folks went out and made an active effort to get the Go Proud stickers. I had a few of them. A lot of them went out and made sure they got antiwar.com stickers, and were very, like, this is us, and, so there was definitely that contention there. And it's a tough thing to break down, because even within the Liberty movement, we tend to eat our own a little bit too, because there's, that, well, this person isn't Liberty enough, or this person's too this neocon, Decepticon enough. And then in the greater context, then we're these Liberty folks at CPAC, and then there's them, and then there's us. So that does definitely exist, and we have to do something about that, because, I don't know what can you really do, but basically that was my experience too at CPAC as well.
What I understand you're saying is that you had multiple so-called Republican conservative groups, all divided, trying to focus on the division and not coming together from a winning mentality, which is what you were talking about earlier.
That's correct.
And that's what you're seeing there. So we need to get around that or beyond that somehow, some way, is what you're saying.
I'm going to throw in some of my comments right here. I remember back in 2008 when they had the convention, there was almost a Democrat. John McCain won the nomination. There was he almost converted to Democrat Party right before he threw his hat in the race. That's what I meant by that comment. That was widely known, by the way, reasonably widely. And then you had former Democrat Rudy Giuliani, or shall I say Giuliani, who also was a former Democrat. And then you had, I think really a Democrat who had an I by his name, Joe Lieberman. All these people got to speak there. And the one fellow who was a candidate who most often supported the Republican platform was completely shut out, as were all of his followers. There were people who had hundreds of dollars worth of literature and things, books, pamphlets, that were stolen from them by the security forces. So how are we in the Ron Paul camp to hold down our resentment and, be palsy-walsy with people who are doing that to us, not giving us the light of day, and then treating us like we're the criminals and the enemy? Yeah, there's resentment on this side too, and for good reason. And maybe, Anita, you'd like to answer that before
That's actually something I've been thinking about most of the weekend, because when people think of Ron Paul, they think of him as a vote splitter, someone who comes in and throws it towards the Democrats because he runs on a third-party ticket. There is not a sense that he's part of the Republican establishment. It's like he's outside. They would never even consider giving him the nomination. And I really don't have an answer for that, because I've been thinking about it, and I was talking to Tony yesterday, your friend, about maybe it's his son. I don't know how you guys feel, but I love Rand Paul, and that he seems to be a bridge between conservatives and libertarians. He's someone that we can all get around, and I don't know if that, I don't want to say there's not a future for his dad, but I do know that he sparked something in folks that I haven't seen before. So just thought I'd throw that in there.
I would have to say, don't become them. Stand above them. Stand above the guerrilla warfare tactics that they're trying to do. The message is simple: liberty. We don't need to fight for that message. It speaks for itself. So do what you need to do as an activist to help educate and inform others. Don't get in a ring with an establishmentarian, because you're both going to look like idiots. Let him look like the idiot, okay? Work in a positive manner. Whether or not Ron Paul gets elected, he has taught us one thing. His message with this revolution, with this peaceful revolution, with love, shows that we need to go out there and spread the message, and we don't have to do it strong-handedly. We can do it because that message speaks for itself. And do you ever see Ron Paul get agitated when he's on Fox News, when he's on MSNBC or any other of the mainstream media outlets when they're bashing him? He's a very humble guy. In fact, they take that and they look at him as being very weak. But explain to me, how weak is an individual to get up there day in, day out, be bashed, and still come back at him with the same message? That's strength of courage right there. So.
Well, I would invite all the Ron Paul Republicans to come home. Ron Paul ran as the president of the Libertarian Party in 1988. Come on back. You can take us over. It won't be hard. There's not very many of us. But that's one of my concerns that Anita brought up. You know, we have all these groups promoting freedom, and we eat each other alive because we're not the purest of the pure. And I almost think it's a divide and conquer mentality. And, you know, there's a libertarian who ran for office in Milwaukee, and he got 3% of the vote. And so he joined the Republican Party and ran on the exact same platform, and he got about 45% of the vote. Okay? So who's keeping the libertarians down if it's not, you know?
Duality keeps the libertarians down. Everything in our life is duality.
Right.
When you bring in a third, it does not fit.
Yeah.
And it's simple. I don't know how
well,
else
there's truth. You know, light because of dark. You know, heavy because of light. You know,
That's
rich
right.
because of poor. There's a truth to that. So what we have to do is lump the Republicans and the Democrats, the Republicrats, as we like to call them, and prove them that they're in cahoots.
Well,
and we're the dual. We are the other end of the duality.
I don't disagree with libertarian. I probably was a libertarian. But I know this, that my voice will not be heard. My vote will not be felt unless I became a Republican.
How's that working for you?
Very good.
Is it?
Talk to the person next to you.
Okay.
It's working very good.
Well, is it?
It's because my voice now gets heard.
And what have we got out? We're in a collapse. We're going down. We've got a Democratic president. That's all I'm just saying. To do the same thing over and expect different results is insanity.
Well, I understand. It's insanity. But it's the duality, and you can't get away from it. Good, bad. Done.
Tony makes a great point that it is duality, authoritarian versus libertarian. The duality in the political power play is Democrat versus Republican. That's the stage that is set. Instead of rebuilding the stage right now, we're concentrating on formulating our actors. We need to get the actors who we all share in common on the stage that's already built and propel them into office so that we can get our agenda passed. I agree. We do need to stop this political infighting. It's killing us. Gary Johnson's going to be running for, has already announced that he's running for office. He's another libertarian. Ron Paul launched his exploratory committee. It's a matter of days before he announces. We're getting our message out. We're coming at them like a wave of an invasion. You can rule one guy off as a kook, but you can't rule off two, or maybe three, or four. If we come at them at all different angles and play with them on their stage, we will overcome.
I want to throw something in here while it's still fresh on my brain here. Yeah, there's this infighting in the party and things, and there's also some infighting in this so-called Tea Party movement. And, you know, a friend of mine, Tim Dake, tried to build this coalition here in the state. And, you know, the closer we got to actually being a coalition, the more there seemed to be some fractionation of the movement. And I told him early on, I says, you know, I'm not going to fight with people who profess to be my friends. I'm going to save that energy for the other side. And if they don't want to come with me on a particular issue, you know, we can pick and choose the issues that we're going to ally on, and we can do it on an ad hoc basis. And I think we have to do it in such a way that we don't create a permanent enemy. And sometimes that's really, really hard, because, especially when I look at the hypocrisy of some of these mainstream politicians. It's really hard for me to want to be nice to them. But, you know, I guess the other thing is, if we are not reasonably nice to them and they're not reasonably nice to us, you know, Obama wins. So that's a point of frustration with me. And then with that, I'm going to give the microphone to this young lady right here.
I just had a comment. Last year I was elected to the Shawano County Board, and to get a perspective on the conservative values in that area, I joined the Republican Party, which I have just kind of arm's length because I was not in agreement with a lot of what was going on. So as a part of that, I volunteered to be on the resolution committee, the platform they take to the caucus, and when we went to the caucus, I brought up the fact of auditing the Fed, because I thought, well, I got to get slide some ideas in there, okay? Well, they weren't real receptive to it at first, but they did pass it on the local level. And lo and behold, they get to the district level, and somehow it just miss email, nobody got it, and so it was never voted on. But at least I got the slide in there. I'll have to agree with him. You know, like I said, arm's length with the Republican Party, but getting in there has gotten me a little voice. So if that's the way to do it, that's the way I'm doing it.
You know, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give the microphone to Tony here, because he's like the expert on this. Tony's been on the resolutions committee, and this is at the state level, and I think Randy Malini was just recently appointed, and I'll let Tony take it from here and tell about the progress and what's going on.
Well, part of the progress is sitting at the table up there, and it's sitting in this room here. Okay, this person here taking this picture of me is a Republican now. She wasn't last month. Mike was not a Republican when? 3 months ago? You are now. And he's now heads up his South Branch in Milwaukee County. I head up the West Allis Branch in Milwaukee County. I'd have never thought I would have been a chair, okay? You would have told me this, it would have been crazy. But the thing is, we get our voice out now. Now, I don't have any argument about libertarian. I love libertarians. I love Republicans. I love Democrats. Issues are the issues are it. If you can argue an issue with intelligence, and we all know that the issues we argue hold water. They're not stupid issues. The Fed is robbing us. Our government is helping them. And people are letting it happen. But we can, like you, can at least voice and get people to start thinking, to get those Republicans to start thinking. And that's all I can say. And I'll talk to Democrats about issues. I mean, they don't listen too much, but they still do. But the thing is to get involved and to get your voice. And even though, if you can find 2 more people, her, right there. If she can find 2 more people to help you, to cover your back, you will not feel alone anymore. You'll feel empowered. And I believe me, can't even count any money. When I first got involved in the Republican Party, it was 2 people, me and another guy. And now, how many you think, guys? Maybe 50? Out of what? Maybe we're half. We are winning votes at caucuses, in your branch meetings. We are winning votes, and to me, that's changing policy. That's changing their attitude, and they don't even know it.
So you're taking a libertarian message with the Republican name.
That's it. That's it. It's play the duality game. You want to play basketball? Get some tennis shoes on and play some basketball. You know, if you want to play football, put some cleats on and go play football. Right now, I'm playing basketball, and I got my basketball shoes on, okay? And I'm looking to stuff it.
Another thing to add to the nice lady's comments here. A couple years ago, I took the End the Fed, Audit the Fed resolutions to the county meeting. died for lack of a second. 22 other people in the room died for the lack of a second. That same year, both those resolutions passed at the state level. So you might be surprised. There's other people working, and don't give up. Don't give up. That's the thing I tell people. A couple of years ago in talking to the Campaign for Liberties, people were down in the mouth because Ron Paul lost. And I said, hey, look, we got all these issues out on the table that nobody even thought of before. And the Fed is one of them. I remember, trying to preach about the Federal Reserve to people, and their eyelids would kind of flutter and roll back in their heads. And I learned not to bring it up unless they showed some level of receptiveness. But now, 20 or 30% of the people pretty much completely understand the corruption of the Federal Reserve, and Ron Paul is the biggest reason for that. That plus the economic downturn that proved everything he said right. Scott.
I just got elected to the vice chairmanship of the Central Wisconsin Tea Party, and the chairman has been talking about the Patriot Coalition, and we were involved, and now he's talking about getting out of it. And I just want to know what maybe the panel or you think about the Patriot Coalition, because I notice a lot of the resolutions that come through there are, I think, Campaign for Liberty, Republican Liberty Caucus, different Patriot Tea Party groups. Could anybody speak to that, or kind of what that, or is there any awareness of that?
Any of you want to address that, or you want to? Okay, I'll run with it. I got involved in the coalition right from the get-go, right from the first meeting in Oconomowoc in the fall of 2008, was it, or 2009? Yeah, 2009. And, it looked like we had this one big happy family. But, it's like Anita said here, egos and, slight divisions and maybe some not so slight divisions. And people are going off and doing their own thing. And it's like some of them, I don't know if they're plants or not. And I don't care. I don't care if it's their giant ego. I don't care if it's that they're really working for George Soros. The thing is, they're taking our eye off of the ball. We're not getting our issues addressed in Madison. And the most important thing to me is issue by issue. I want some of this stuff passed. And if I'm going to be fighting my friends, that ain't going to happen. And it's really sad. I'll drop a name here. Americans for Prosperity. They claim to be the Tea Party group. To me, they're counterfeit Tea Party group. All they are is shills for the mainstream of the Republican Party. Tommy Thompson on stage in Madison. I felt like at the Tea Party there last year, I felt like I got hit in the gut. And I told that to Mark Block, was the head of AFP at the same time. And I said, if you want to split this coalition, you go ahead and keep on doing crap like this. And of course he did. But I guess there's a fine line there, and maybe I'm a little bit of a hypocrite. I'll work with AFP on particular issues. I'll go to some of their events, I'll listen, and I'll throw this aside and that aside. But they're not going to stamp me out to be a Tommy Thompson clone. That ain't happening. And, how do you work with them on some things without building up the rancor? That's a good question. I might not even be the best one to answer that part of it.
My understanding is that the AFP is kind of, the folks that were working with the AFP are now the Herman Cain presidential campaign. My concern there with Herman Cain is that he's a former Fed governor from Kansas City. He does not want to audit the Fed. My understanding is he's a military-industrial complex war hawk. I have some concerns about that type of ideology driving the Tea Party. So I guess my question back to you is, if you're talking about the Tea Party, is the AFP part of this, or are they just trying to drive it somewhere else?
AFP is at the center of that. There's no denying it. They are at the center of driving this toward the neocon end of the spectrum. They think they're going to take this discontent and talk nice on the fiscal issues and give us two of the biggest fiscal issues and be on the wrong side of them, military-industrial complex and the Federal Reserve. Either one of those is a strikeout. You got strike 1, 2, and 3 with one pitch on either one of those issues as far as I'm concerned. it's been very frustrating, and yet, you know, they got deep pockets and they get all this news attention, and they pretend to be the Tea Party, but they're not my Tea Party. Let's see, I guess I was critical of Mark Block one too many times because I don't even get their emails anymore.
Last night, and I'm going to start with Ron Paul. I think a lot of the Tea Party members or Ron Paul fans had vitriol last year in 2007, 2008, when we saw how he was treated through the Republican Party. And this is going to something you mentioned last night, if you don't mind me pulling it up. But what I would like to see is a concerted effort, for those of you that are already on the boards and things, these resolutions that you have passed, and what you're passing is something to the GOP senior level management, saying that we expect him to be treated equally respectfully on mainstream media, at the news level, so that his views are given equal weight. He was not, but I think our party, or this group of people, of like-minded folks, should be writing to the GOP, writing or through the board meetings, if these resolutions have any impact, to various people within power, to say we expect Ron Paul to be treated exactly as a legitimate candidate for President of the United States, and if you throw the vitriol at him that you did in 2007, 2008, there's going to be a problem.
Very well said, Mike. Very well said.
Just to address your concern there, sir, it is going to be a tough battle in 2012. Reince Priebus is the RNC chairman. The Republican Liberty Caucus had tried to come out and advocate within the Republican Party to not elect Mr. Priebus to the chairmanship, and it's just indicative of his past practice here as the state chair. How he cherry-picked his individuals, how he allowed for endorsements at the state convention to occur, you know, to help his cherry picking of candidates. He's planning on doing that on a national level. In fact, there was just another article that came out about 4 days ago. We posted it up on the RLC Facebook page, that he wants to limit debates for the 2012 election. He thinks that there are too many debates. This is his reasoning behind it. He thinks there are too many debates that pull and drag these candidates from all over America, and it only goes out to a select amount of people. He thinks that holding maybe one, two, or a handful of debates will address a large audience, and it'd be less burdening on the candidates running for office. But right there, you start eliminating people from those debates, now they have absolutely no voice. I want my politician to work for the presidency, okay? Baseball players work harder, and they have less power than the president of the free world, basically. To conclude with what Ken had said, the Republican Liberty Caucus is that vehicle of libertarianism, funneling directly through the heart of the Republican Party. We're trying on a grassroots level to introduce resolutions within the Republican Party to help transform it back to the party that it once was. The message of liberty is shared by all. We're not here to create enemies. We're not saying that you need to be a part of the Libertarian Party or a part of the Republican Liberty Caucus or what have you. We're just choosing this as an avenue of approach to get that liberty message into our public policy. I encourage each and every one of you to check it out. Check us out if this is your same thought, that liberty needs to be run through the stage, the Republican stage. We're located at wi-rlc.org. We need members, we need money, and we will carry on that message. I can guarantee that. Thank you.
First of all, I just wanted to let people know that I've enjoyed being here today, especially coming over as an ex-liberal to conservatism, and I've dealt with libertarians a lot in my travels, but I'm still learning a lot, and I think that what we have to realize is that the dialogue is going to continue. It'll continue this year and into 2012, but I think that what we really need to do is like what you were saying and what Tony was saying, and we were talking about this with conservatives, actually. The conservatives were complaining that the Republicans weren't listening to them. So we told them to get out there and become precinct captains and join the Republican Party and become voting members, and that's how they could have their voice heard, and that's what they were doing in 2010, and I feel like that's what we're going to have to do. We can make these parties the way what we want them to be, what they're supposed to be. When I was growing up, it was Jesus and JFK. That Democrat Party doesn't exist anymore. So those same people, the same principles apply for that. If we want to change it, we have to go in and put people in there that are going to change it. So I think that you're moving in the right direction, and we're going to, once we get people in and give them a voice, the direction of the party will have to change because it's starting at the local level and moving up.
I too am was really glad I came today. I want to thank the invitation, to have the Libertarians have a booth here. We're naive. But I think you guys are more naive than I am. If you think the Republican Party is going to give Ron Paul a seat at the table, I hope you're right. I pray you're right. But I see him getting kicked. I see him being a barnyard fight, and 8 of them are ganging up on him. I'm going to relive hearing one Republican presidential candidates say, you get your marching orders from Al-Qaeda. And Ron Paul says, no, I don't. I get them from the Constitution. Okay? But, that said, I'm not, here to bash Republicans. That's, I've voted for a Republican probably once. But that, and I'm kidding. If we have a candidate that understands that a small government will be more efficient and give us more freedom, whatever they run as. If the socialists never really got elected in Milwaukee, but really they didn't, but their whole national agenda has been totally adopted by both parties. You go back to 1930 and you look at the socialist platform, and there's absolutely nothing that didn't come true. So if we can move both parties towards liberty, great. I don't care who advances our ideas. I'm just telling you, we have the booth out there. It's for the politically homeless. Okay? And you guys took the test, and most of you are libertarian. A few of you are conservative, and that's fine. But we welcome you. But if you have a choice between a libertarian candidate and a Republican candidate and a Democratic candidate, which of those 3 do you think really will give you the most liberty? It won't be the Democrat or Republican. So don't throw us under the bus anymore. Okay? Thanks.
Just wanted to address the party issue that we're going on through here. I'm a registered libertarian, and I'm also a registered Republican just recently. I support working through the Republican Party. I support working through the Libertarian Party. I support working through the Constitution Party. Or an independent. In fact, I voted for every one of those in this past election here. So I think it can work from all directions. We can work within the Republican Party. But what happens if your candidate loses in the primary? And then you get somebody like Dan Kapanke or Sessenbrenner or something like that in there. Are you going to vote for him because he's a Republican? I wouldn't. I'd vote for the Libertarian or the Independent or whoever. So I think we can work through all avenues. We don't have to argue about anything like that. So just all work together, and I think it'll work out for the best.
Hey, I'm even in favor of a Democrat Liberty Caucus.
Let's take about 15 minutes.